and today we got to play Glory to Rome. This is definitely a grill game for more than one person.
2 people, we already know that.
So we were very fortunate to be able to find a copy that was created or reproduced
in a much nicer format than the standard.
Yes. So we were able to find that, and we wanted to play the game and show you guys the awesomeness. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because board games are amazing and you want to see Grail games come across our table. See if they're actually worth it or not. Now, Rob, can you tell us a little bit more about Glory to Rome?
So I'm not for sure the copy that we got here when he recreated. So these are only the stats for the original version of the black box version of the game. So this is Glory to Rome. Originally came out in 2005. The overall rank is 237. It's rated at 7.5. Designed by Ed Carter and Carl Chuddick. Art by Ed Carter, Valerio Cioni, Clemens Franz, Felix Gert. Published by Cambridge Games Factory. Way out of print. Good luck trying to find a copy. I found 2 on Board Game Geek.
Long story on that, too.
If you're willing to pay for it, there is one, I think, in Italy for 120 euro, but that look like they'll ship it to the United States. And then $375 for the United States copy of the black box version.
So the reason this is out of print, because 2005 isn't typically considered way out of print, but the company that made this, the 2 guys that designed it, now hate each other, right? They're won't work with one another. The last shipment of this, when the Kickstarter finished, it sat on a boat in the harbor. So one of the ways you can tell that if you got a original Glory to Rome is the box is water damaged, because there was almost all the black box ones were water damaged from sitting on the boat so long. They finally made it out to the Kickstarter backers, but after that, basically things got worse. It's been tried to reprint twice. Mont and I was one of the reprints, and there was another one that it was an attempt to reprint it. Both times a lawsuit was involved. The game had to be substantially altered in order to release it. Ichronia, that was the other one. Those 2 were both variants of this game, but they're nowhere near this game. I think Mont and I is the closest, but it's a way simplified game.
Yeah, every time I've tried to find a copy, they're always like, well, you can't get Glory to Rome, try Mont and I instead.
Yeah, so it's the closest alternative, but yeah,
don't give any spoilers away now.
All the files and all the data to create these is now up on Board Game Geek to self-print, because people love this game so much that they allow it, that it's out there to print for yourself. And that's what has happened is we had a person, kudos to Jake, thank you so much, who had taken the time and care to print this lovely version of it.
3D printed the box.
Well, he didn't. He purchased it.
Right. But, I mean, it's a 3D printed box, really cool logo that they had 3D printed on there.
So it's one of those things.
Really nice.
Yeah. So a group needs to get together and maybe do a couple
magnetic
more.
lid.
Magnetic lid. Pretty awesome. All right, so let's we can't really talk about quality of pieces because we do not have the original game.
Right. No, we can't talk about what's in if you were to find the black box edition of the game, that's not what you're going to get here. We could talk about what we got, though.
Right.
Yeah, but even then, it's not really comparative. Like they said, that it was a magnetic box. This is actually the first player marker actually comes out as well. So that's actually really nifty. And then everything has linen. Everything is linen finish. It is super nice. So we were actually very fortunate to get a really upgraded version of this game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to rate it because this is basically a work of art that someone was able to create.
It's a work of love.
Yeah, it is a work of love.
It's a work of love.
It's a work of love.
It's such a beloved game, and it's so hard to get, which is unfortunate because more people should be able to play this game. It's that good.
Yes. Well,
spoiler.
When we talk to it. Yeah, talk about that. We'll find out.
I really like the game.
So, I agree as far as I don't think any of our scores should be relevant to the black box edition.
Right.
that said, I'm going to go ahead and give this version a 9.
Yeah.
Because I love the card quality, the cards. The only thing I didn't like is this is supposed to be the Rome Demands card. It's supposed to be an oversized card. It's definitely not. It's a standard size card. It didn't come with a rule book. It just was a printed copy. And it's missing a few pages. But, I mean, you can print it yourself. That's what he did, was he printed it off Board Game Geek. So, but yeah, I mean, apart from that, this is just an excellent version of this game. It's just a card game. That's all it is. It's nothing but cards and just little
very basic art. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about theme. So, in theme, this I think is probably the only category that this particular version is lacking because the art is very, very basic. This does have to do with Rome, and you have some Roman terminology, but it's not strong or heavy, I believe, in that.
Well, this is the favored art of the game because it's been released in 3 different versions during the time that it was produced. This was the favorite version. There was a standard white box, there was the black box, was the final version. There was one in between that was a cartoonish Roman art, and no one liked that art style. This is the one that everybody wants. Not this plastic version that we've got here, but the standard black box.
Well, I still think it's lame. So, for me, theme-wise, it's still not very strong. I'm going to give it a 5.5 there. I mean, there's some stuff going on, but it's not all that great.
I mean, it's basic. I'll give you that. It's very basic art, but I like the simplicity of it because of the use of the cards it varies how you play the card, what side you play it on. It has to be fairly basic to allow for that flexibility. I'm probably going to give the art of this because based on the art.
Overall theme.
I love Roman themed games.
Mm-hmm. But it's really light. I mean, come on, this could have been anything.
I mean, yes and no. The cards could be anything, but the actual function of the cards makes sense with what's...
Well, no, but Merchant doesn't have anything specifically with Rome. Architect doesn't have necessarily... This is just, you're building buildings. This could be anything. The only thing that is actually thematic to that is the Legionary...
there's a lot of card specifics that would be Roman. So like Insula, you wouldn't see that in most non-Roman things.
Yeah, but it's very light.
I agree.
I'm not going super heavy. I'm going to give it 6.5. I like the Roman theme.
Okay.
I like the simplicity of the art. I don't think it's stellar art, but it's definitely, I think, what's appropriate for this kind of game.
Right. I'm be transparent. This is a Grail game to me. I've wanted this game forever. So my opinion's biased. I'm a 7.
Okay.
Just because I wanted the game so bad.
All right. So now let's move on to the rule book. So again, we can't
really give. I mean, it is the original rule book reprinted on in paper.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that the font of it is very small. Not a big fan of the font. It's laid out about as well as you can get for this kind of game. This game is deceptively complex. It's not super complex. I'd say it's a medium level game. But when you look at these basic cards and you get them out, there's a lot of things you can do with those cards. Yes. And that's what makes this game special. So the rule book itself is pretty simple because it just basically tells you how to play a role and what those roles will do. But it's with the combinations that you can end up triggering with all that that makes this deceptively complex. And some of the cards you have to think about when you read all the flavor text and what everything, not flavor text, but what the card actually can trigger if you play it as a building.
Yes.
So you can get some unique combos, and that's why everyone likes this game.
Well, it's one of the, if not the very first, one of the very first multi-use card games out there. And so that's where the complexity is. Do I do this, or do I do this, or do I do that? And so, and they all have that functionality. Mm-hmm. So that's where the complexity comes.
So I'm going to rate the rulebook, given the fact that it's a fairly complex rulebook, and granted, I don't have a good copy of it. It's just paper. I'm going to probably go ahead and give it a 7.5. I think it does a good job as it can with what this material is in conveying it. I just wish the font were bigger, and obviously it's printed in crummy paper. But
I had a hard time following along with the rule book, but once we got into it and reading the cards, it became pretty self-explanatory.
I mean, up front, it tells you it's a complex game to pick up. Trying to learn it from the rule book is difficult, and it tells you some suggestions on how to best learn using the rule book. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because once you get in, it starts making sense really quick.
It really did.
So let's get into the actual gameplay. So everyone's gonna take 5 cards.
Yeah.
So
now there's 2 ways to play this depending on which version you have, because there was the Imperium version. You actually get 4 cards and a wild joker, the Jack. But in this case, we played with the standard version with 5 cards.
Okay.
All right. So basically, if I'm starting first player, I'm going to be what we call the leader. So I'm going to end up leading. I'm going to put a craft here. So I'm going to put a crafter out. Now, a crafter lays a foundation from your hand or fills a structure from your hand. Okay. So I'm going to lay it out. And so I'm going to end up building, let's see. I'm going to finish building this, so I'm going to take a card and actually slide it underneath. Now, when you go to build a building, this is kind of very relevant, is when you initially play the building, so instead of trying to complete a building, I would actually play a building, I would grab a foundation from this top row here. I'd place the building that I want to build.
Those are actually sites. The card you're playing from your hand is the foundation.
Okay, so you place that there, and then, so that's one build action. So I have another crafter action, so then I would end up putting this down.
Of the same color material.
Yes. Now, if you're playing with a crafter, it comes from your hand. Now, here's the thing, though. I have one crafter here, but I also have a crafter in my clientele. Now, we'll talk about that on different actions. So, if that's the case, I get to actually take that action again. So, I will do that. Now, it says foundation plus 3 materials. Now that I have 3 materials over there, all right, I'm going to remove the site. I'm going to finish the building. And I'm going to put the coins underneath that influence, okay? Influence restricts how many vault and how much clientele I can take. So that's very important that as you build that through that game, kind of being aware, because your vault is actually where most of your victory points will end up lying, as well as your built buildings. All right, so now I get to trigger that ability. Each of my clients may perform its action twice when you lead or follow from this role. So moving forward, that makes it a little bit more powerful.
It doesn't trigger immediately, but in the future.
Right. So, okay. So I played the crafter. Are you going to follow?
I am. I have a craftsman as well, so I can play from my hand the craftsman, and I then can build a foundation. So the foundation is from my hand as well. So I'm going to then play a castra, where if I think at the end of a round, in which I lost at least a card from my hand to the legionary, I get a free think action. So I'm going to play that there, and I take a yellow foundation to go under because it's a yellow card, and it's going to now be in play or in development for the future. I need, in this case, 1 yellow card to complete it, but since I only have the green 1 action, I don't have anything underneath my clientele. I can only put 1 card in.
It's found there. That's how much what you need to build.
Yeah, it's on each one of these sites.
All right, now are you going to follow?
Although I have a green card, which would allow me to follow, I'm not going to, because I'm looking for specific actions so that maybe I could do other things. So instead, I can choose to draw 1 card. So I would just...
So there's a couple of things. It's called the think action.
Yeah, so what is it still considered a think?
Yes, it's a think.
Yes. So I could either draw back up to my full hand size, or I draw 1 card if I'm already at my full hand size.
Yeah, so, or you can draw the Jack.
Yeah.
So I'm drawing a card because I'm hoping to pull the card I really want.
So, yeah.
Or the action that I really want.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for an action, taking the Jack guarantees you'll get an action because you can play it. The only thing is it only performs that function. So you can only play it as an action. Whereas the other card has multiple functions.
Yeah. Right. All right. So then my turns ends. All of these get collected and they go to the middle pile here. And then the leader goes to Randy. And so we'll keep going around until the game's end. But before we do, we're going to kind of go over a few more actions. So the yellow cards are the laborers. So if you were to play a laborer, you are basically taking from the center pool, taking material from the pool into your stockpile. So, okay, there's only one thing available to me. They're both green, so I'm going to put this under my stockpile if that was the case. Now, if I played a legionary, that's a little bit different. So I'm going to, you played that, you're going to expose a color, green. Now, if you guys have greens, pass them on.
I do not, so I have to yell out, "Glory to Rome!"
All right, but because he gave me one, and there's one in the center, I get one from the center, one in here. Now, when you do that, it's only from your players from your left to your right. Now, in this particular instance, there's only 3 players, so it's everybody.
Yeah.
But normally when that happens, it's only from your left and your right, so just be aware of it. Okay, now, then I'm going to slide these back into my stockpile. Now, the other thing that I can do is take a patron. So if I have enough slots in my clientele, I can play a patron card, go into the center pile. Okay, there's nothing right now, but there's some cards over here. We'll just pretend.
The patrons are the purple cards.
Yeah. So if I were to play this card, I would end up looking through the deck and deciding, okay, you know what? I want another architect. I'm going to slide that under, and that's going to be my clientele. Now, again, those are the cards that allow you, if you play a similar card, it increases your actions when you take that action. All right, the next one is the architect. Now, if I were to play the architect, which is the gray building. Right here. All right. I can build a foundation like I normally would with something that's in my hand. I play it out. Or I can actually take the resources from my stockpile to build the actual building instead of my hand. So it's a little bit different than Craftsman, but actually very, very relevant, because if you notice, a lot of these cards are about getting stuff into your stockpile. And so Architect is very beneficial from getting them onto the board and being useful to you. Now, the other thing that putting it in the stockpile, you can use a merchant. So it's one of these blue cards here. So if I were to be able to use this, I could then take one card, right? And you want to get the highest level one, right? That's level 3. And you get to put it in your vault. Now, everything in your vault is upside down. But, like, for example, if I put this one, it's worth 3 victory points at the end of the game. The vault is pretty much where most of your victory points will end up being. But again, it's very limited based on the current influence you have at the top of your board.
And once it's in your vault, you can't look at it again.
Nobody's
you can't
allowed.
Look at it. You don't remember.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't remember,
you'll find out at the end of the game.
Yeah, I had a card that let me add cards to the vault from blind from the deck, which was a double-edged sword, because I might be putting a 1-pointer in.
Right.
But I'm not wasting one of my cards from my stockpile to do it. But I kept putting 3-pointers into my stockpile, so I was like losing points if I used it, so I didn't use it very often.
And then just remember, we were just playing cards for basically the color and the action. When you build these cards as buildings, they have a plethora of other actions.
Almost every card is different.
There's so much.
Well, there's some things that bend the rules a little bit, or most of it's a little bit.
There's 2 that end the game outright.
Yeah, they cheated. I almost won the game because they kept stealing cards that I needed out of the pool.
Listen,
but I had an instant win card, but they cheated. So
no,
yeah, that's how I rationalize it. So
okay, well, you rationalize it that way.
Yeah.
So that is the most of the concepts.
Yeah, very basic.
Very basic. But that does cover the game a little bit. So overall, I have found that I really like the games, and you said that this was the first game that did this to have.
Well, Rob said that. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 100% if it's the first, but it's
definitely one of the earliest.
It's one of the earliest ways of playing
that each card, like depending on the side you play. And I have found that I really enjoy games that are like that, because it's like, oh, which way's the best way to use this card? So I can appreciate that portion of the gameplay, especially if this is one of the first. Good thinking. All right. And then the other thing that I can appreciate is that you're kind of building on your own level. There's some player interaction, but it's very minimal.
The legendary action can really...
Yeah, it's kind of like the Monopoly in Catan, where you're taking all the stuff from everybody else. In some cases, it helped me, because it got rid of stuff which let me draw my hand back up when I followed.
But that's really the extent of the player interaction.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so, except for like the following and stuff like that. So I thought overall that actually was a really good dynamic for me, because I'm not a huge attack player. So this one actually fits really well for what I kind of like.
It's not too brutal.
I will say, I think they did a fantastic job. I think this is one of I think the most strategic card games I have ever played. The strictly cards, right? And so I think they did a very, very good job. And I think there's a reason why it's a grail game for a lot of people. So with that, I am probably going to give this. I'm probably going to give this a 9, just because for what it is, it's pretty top notch on gameplay. So. Straight up card game with strategy, I'm going to give this a 9. What about you guys?
I'm a 9.5. One, again, my opinion is biased. I've been wanting this for a very long time and finally got to play it. So it just kind of It felt really good. But the reason why I'm so high, excuse me, is so high is because it's very satisfying. Lots of card combos, which I always like. And the only reason why it's not a 10 is because of the limited art and the light theme. If it had just a little bit more art, a little bit more theme to it, it'd be a 10 in my opinion. I like this game.
What about you, Randy? What are you thinking?
The art doesn't bother me. I like the art being as simplistic as it is. I honestly, there's nothing about this game I don't like. It's an engine builder. You can build it many ways you want. You can score lots of different ways. I mean, yes, you're limited to how many points you score based on what you put into your vault.
But you can expand on that.
You can expand the vault. You can trigger combos. I had 2 cards that helped me get basically rush cards into my vault. My biggest problem was trying to get points, the influence I needed to build my vault up so I could put them in faster. So I kept hitting walls and I was just building buildings just to get enough influence. Right. So I was burning the deck as quickly as possible so you guys didn't catch up and trying to get the game over while I was burying cards. And I had that engine going for quite a while in the game. I don't think you all picked up on it for most of the game. It was a sneaky kind of point thing, but you could have undone it at any point by playing that card that you got to end the game with, like you said. Yeah. So there's counters to everything in this. And then
I was there, 1 card away.
Yeah. And then at the end, you get awarded bonus points for having the most of categories of different colors in your vault. So there's bonuses that counteract some of because there's some of the card suits are more valuable than others to get in your vault. So, putting on blues and purples in there is great, but if somebody else puts some yellows and greens and reds and grays in there, they can counter those points with 3-point bonus cards at the end of the game and potentially still win the game too.
Right.
So there's lots of varieties of ways that you can end up winning, even though it's a very simplistic scoring system. And I appreciate that. I think someone put a lot of thought into this game. And
Two people, in fact. That's why they're arguing. That's why they're arguing over.
Kudos to both of you guys. I mean, this is an incredible game.
Yes.
And
again, I feel bad for people who don't get to play this game.
Yeah, it's really the biggest
should be
shame is that this game is not more available, and it doesn't look like it ever will be.
And that's too bad.
I mean, it took us both years to track this down. And Jake, I really appreciate you giving up your copies.
Yes.
We have been really wanting this game. I'm giving it a 10 because of that. Because the history behind it, the fact that everyone does love this game as much as they do, and there's a reason for it.
There really is.
It's an amazing game. And I didn't know how amazing it was. I never got to play it. I just knew I love Roman-themed games. We went on the cruise ship. I really wanted to hate this game. I didn't want to like it anyway, because I knew it was almost impossible that I was ever going to get a copy.
And you got lucky that year.
Same year. So I go on the cruise ship, I played it, and I came back. Darn, I liked that game a lot. And then I ended up managing at Gen Con to get it. My sister told me about it. So kudos, Rhonda.
Yeah, thanks,
you.
Rhonda.
You're always pointing out the fact that I don't call you out. I'm calling you out now. Thank you for connecting me with Jake. And really thank you to Jake as well, again, because you did an amazing job printing this, getting this done.
And then letting those 2 copies go.
Yeah. I mean, he and his friend Poole all gathered together and got a bulk discount printing it because of that.
Right.
And, he basically sold it at cost. He didn't try to make a profit on this.
Anyway, so we're grateful for everyone.
Awesome. I love it.
Absolutely. Now, if you want to play this and you want to come hang out with us, we'll be more than happy to open up our homes. But until then, come join us again on this channel. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.